Hello, welcome to Makeup by the Numbers. Today we're going to be doing another ultimate review. We are going to focus on the Clinique Even Better All Over Concealer and Eraser. So going to go straight into it. So first off, it's just another concealer as far as the packaging is concerned. It's a plastic container that rolls all over the place. I absolutely despise that, but that is the nature of the game. This one does feature a handy sponge. You can see I used mine a couple times to test it out. It doesn't have a lot of give because it is a small sponge, but it was easy to use. It's great for travel. I couldn't see doing your makeup every day with this sponge, but for travel it's absolutely awesome. And it has an antibacterial properties, which is pretty good considering it is attached and inseparable from it. I would like to keep it clean. It has an effective deposit, which is a medium amount of concealer, and it has a small angled doe foot. Now, do forgive how messy it is. That is because I took out the stopper to completely pan this product. There's very little in it, and it has some flexibility, which is more gentle on the eyes, I find, than a rigid tube. So overall, I was really impressed with how easy it was to apply and the application process itself. It does go on with a fairly even distribution. It blends out easily, and I had no problems working with it. I would say it was one of the better concealers in that regard. And getting into the numbers portion of a Makeup by the Numbers Ultimate Review, I will give it an 8 for creaminess. This is a very high creamy product. It's not the most creamy that I've used. I would say a creamy concealer would be creamier. However, it was a little bit more creamy and a little bit less thick than, say, other full coverage concealers such as Tarte or Sephora or other brands. So I gave it a 7 for thickness. So overall, it was very workable, very spreadable, and very creamy. I thought it was excellent in that regard. Now, as far as scent, it is an unscented product, but it did have a slight odor. It smells a little bit like makeup. It's very, very mild with some slight alcohol undertones. Now, that doesn't mean that there's alcohol in it. That is just my best way of explaining what that scent is like. Overall, it wasn't enough to put me off using the product in the slightest, and I don't mind that my makeup smells like makeup as long as it doesn't smell putrid and doesn't smell like bacteria, or it doesn't give me any cause for alarm. I was not able to use it entirely within the 6-month shelf life, but I believe I did very close, somewhere around the 8-month mark, for completely panning this product. Moving on to the actual coverage portion of it, I gave it a 7 out of 10. It is a full coverage concealer that is advertised as such, and I thought it was good. I'm going to give it a little bit of hesitation because I have used other full coverage concealers, specifically Tarte, specifically NARS is another very good full coverage concealer, and I don't find that this did anything that they didn't. So 7 out of 10 is good, but not great. It was also buildable, but I only gave it a 6. A 6 is not that great. It's kind of middle of the road. I actually did rank it, again, the same as NARS, which is another one of my favorite concealers, and higher than the Kosas and Sephora brands. The luminosity of it, I gave it a 4. It is advertised as a natural finish, and I found it had the least amount of luminosity as some of the other concealers I've been comparing it to. So if you are a fan of the natural or matte look, you might actually really like this concealer. As far as the longevity is concerned, it had about 10 to 12 hours, which was the same as my other concealers, maybe a little bit less. And I didn't find that had any creasing, and this is supposed to be a creaseless concealer. I don't think any concealer is truly creaseless, depends on how deep and fine like your fine lines and wrinkles are, but for these purposes, I think they did a good job making a product that lived up to expectations. I give it an 8 for no creasing. Now, I do have heavier concealers that tend to stay in put. They tend to be a little bit more opaque. They tend to be a little bit more stiff. They tend to be a little bit harder to work with. There are some that really dry down and create a stiff texture that prevent creasing entirely. And they do perform a little bit better. Considering the fact that this concealer has a lot more flexibility and movability and feels much more lightweight than some of those other brands, I think an 8's actually really good and a trade-off I personally would make. It is available at most places that you can find. Clinique, which is a pretty big brand, so you have Target, Sephora, and Ulta obviously is the big ones, and the cost per ounce, which I'd love getting to, is $150, and that sounds expensive, but it is the same cost as Kosas, it is less than NARS, and it is only slightly more than Tarte, which are the brands that I've priced out, but looking at the current prices for similar products, it's actually par for the course. It has 31 in the shade range, which is pretty average. I personally wish they maybe didn't have a larger range, but had the full range available where you went to purchase it. I, based on availability, ended up getting a neutral concealer in the shade Linen, which I know I am not a neutral undertone, and being so dark, it didn't work under my eyes, and being so yellow, it didn't really work under my face. It's a great formula, but I was having a little bit of trouble shade matching it. That being said, I do know that's because I didn't get the right shade based on availability. It was not because they don't make two shades, which might work on me. I'm not dinging it any points on that. I was able to mix it with a foundation that I have that's too light, and that gave it a very full coverage, very creamy, excellent concealer foundation base. That I absolutely adored and gave me long wear, and it looked okay under the eyes as long as I didn't use too much and then I put a full coverage over it. I do prefer using under eye corrector than a brightening concealer, but that is not a problem with the product, that is just a personal preference. So again, didn't ding it on that. 31 shade range is, again, not something that I personally have a problem with. Then again, what's the point of having 31 shades if it's not available? Just food for thought. Some other things about the product is that it's made with vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, and caffeine, so it's just something that's really made to kind of wake up your skin. It does have a natural finish, and then I saw that also that was gluten-free. First time I have noticed that a concealer was made gluten-free. I don't know if consumers are now looking for their concealer to be gluten-free, but if you are, this one might be for you. So overall, I will say that this is a very good concealer. I ended up giving it a 7 out of 10, which is very good. Not the best I've ever had though. I feel like it's a very good all-around concealer, and it's a very judgment-free concealer. It's a very inoffensive concealer. A lot of people would like it, but there are better concealers out there, and there are better concealers if you're targeting a specific effect or a specific desired ability or capability of a concealer. I don't think that's the right words, but there are other concealers out there that you might consider, especially given that the price point isn't anything spectacular. I can't see running to this concealer over others. In my opinion, this is pretty typical of what Clinique does. They do very safe, very generic makeup that is unadventurous and uninspiring. They definitely don't follow trends, and they're definitely not youthful. And I don't think this concealer is going to be so amazing that anyone's going to put it on and be like, wow, I'm experiencing joy from this. So this is not one of those products that I will be keeping or that I will be adding to my collection, nor is it something that I really want you to have. That being said, now that you know the pros and cons, you can kind of weigh that for yourself. There definitely are people who need a safe, basic concealer like this, which has a very solid and quality reputation. So that concludes my review, but remember, no matter what you buy or what you wear, beauty is on the inside. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.